الرداء الممزق يكشف عن الشرور مهما صغرت، أما الثياب الغالية وشارات العز والرفعة تخفي كل ما تحتها. اتخذ لك عيونا من زجاج تظهر برؤية ما لا تراه. من منكم يقول لي من أنا؟ هل أنا لير؟
Hello guys, today inshallah we'll discuss together psychological analysis of King Lear. King Lear is one of William Shakespeare's masterpieces, which is for many critics regarded as the greatest of his play and the most tragic play ever written. Actually, in King Lear we have two main ideas: tragedy and greatness. It's a very great play, full of tragedy. And if you know something about Shakespeare's plays, you will find this one is full of a lot of themes, a lot of different characters, a lot of things that is very tragic, that start to affect the reader's emotions. Although the story of King Lear and his three daughters is actually an old tale, it's not just known from Shakespeare when he wrote about King Lear, but it's an old tale before Shakespeare, but Shakespeare gives this story a lot of tragedy. So the story of King Lear and his three daughters is actually an old tale that was well known in England before Shakespeare wrote it. What is different that Shakespeare adds to King Lear? Actually, the madness. Lear's madness is just a plot aided by giving the effects of tragedy to his play. Because this king gives everything he owns to his daughters, the bad ones, at the end he doesn't have anything in return, so he is affected by madness. So the madness of Lear is the new idea of this tale, that Shakespeare gives a lot of tragedy concerning the madness of King Lear. But Lear's madness is just a plot aided by giving the effects of tragedy to his play. We know that Shakespeare wrote a lot of tragedy that make his works leave us in a deep impression and stir the emotions of the audience. But I think that King Lear is the most important one, the most essential one that gives us a lot of tragedy. Now we will know the story of King Lear and then we'll continue our analysis. So try to watch the video till the end. Lear is one of Shakespeare's tragedies, meaning it ends in death for the main characters. It's the tale of an aging king who has three daughters and must decide which one will inherit his lands and wealth when he dies. He chooses flattery as the deciding factor and demands that his daughters tell him which one of them loves him best. Although, of course, the truth is not revealed until far too late. When the play opens, King Lear of Britain enters with his court. Lear is an old and bitter man nearing the end of his life. He has no male heir, only three daughters, and so he coldly decides that he will leave the greatest part of his fortune to whichever daughter can convince him she loves him the most. The two oldest daughters, Goneril and Regan, quickly catch on to the game. Goneril speaks first and greatly flatters the king, who immediately grants her a third of his fortune. Regan then comes in and does the same, professing her love for her father so well that she is also granted a third of his fortune. The youngest daughter, Cordelia, is next, but has little to say. Though she does love her father, it's an honest love, and she cannot and will not proclaim it openly in front of the court, not when such a proclamation is being demanded in return for an inheritance. Greatly offended by Cordelia's refusal to flatter him, Lear divides his entire fortune between Goneril and Regan, and of course their lucky husbands, the Duke of Albany and the Duke of Cornwall, respectively. Lear said that he will now live part of the time with each of his 2 daughters and their husbands. Cordelia, though, is disowned and exiled. She was unmarried and had 2 suitors, the Duke of Burgundy and the King of France. But when he hears that she no longer has a dowry, the Duke breaks the engagement, and so the oldest daughters are greatly rewarded for their false displays, while Cordelia's honesty has literally cost her everything. The King of France, however, is stunned by Lear's actions and agrees to marry Cordelia anyway, and so she leaves for France. Lear arrives with a very large part of men to live with Goneril and her husband, the Duke of Albany, for a time, but Goneril is disturbed by her father's men, who are disturbing her orderly life. Now that she has her share of her father's wealth, Lear sees how little respect she actually has for him. Goneril doesn't want him there, and if he must stay, she orders him to at least get rid of most of his men. Lear is both hurt and angry at learning the truth of how Goneril sees him. He leaves to go live with Regan and her husband, the Duke of Cornwall, still believing that Regan had meant it when she told him she loved him. But Regan is now happier to see Lear and his men at her home than Goneril was. Regan too wanted only her inheritance and doesn't want to be burdened by her father. The angry Lear leaves Regan's home to go out into storm onto open moors, feeling he is better out there than with either of his bad daughters. Eventually, Lear is sheltered and saved by the Duke of Kent, but has finally learned his lesson about Goneril and Regan. Word comes that Cordelia and her husband, the King of France, are coming to invade Britain, battle Goneril and Regan and their husbands, and return Lear to the throne. But Britain wins the ensuing battle, and both Lear and Cordelia are captured. At an invading Queen of France, Cordelia's execution is ordered, but Goneril's husband, the Duke of Albany, has finally had enough of his wife. Albany exposes her actions, but not before she poisons her own sister Regan. Goneril herself ends up taking her own life. Lear tries to get to his 3rd daughter and save her life, but it's too late for Cordelia and she is hanged. Her father kills the hangman and carries her body away. Overcome by age, tragedy and grief, Lear dies, and it's implied that the Duke of Albany will become the new king. King Lear is aware of her actions speak louder than words. Since Cordelia's actions towards her father were far more loving towards him than the false word of Goneril and Regan. The play contains a quote that she became very well known: "How sharper than a serpent's tooth it's to have a thankless child." The quote is from Act 1, Scene 4. Lear is speaking bitterly of Goneril after realizing that she was not sincere in her words towards him. He is essentially wishing a curse on her to have a child that will make her just as miserable as she has made her father. Shakespeare's play is believed to be based on the story of King Lear 100 years before the birth of Christ. The modern city of Leicester, England, is said to be named for him.